What's going on, guys? It's Adam P, and welcome back to Newcastle United transfer news. It has happened again. We have been played again, and this is the second time this summer. Newcastle has had an agreement reached to bring a player in, but the player has decided to either wait it out and to take a prolonged period of time to get different football clubs are going for, or in Victor Munoz's case, he got a player that's going behind Newcastle's back and he's doing deals in the background without telling Newcastle, completely doing it behind our backs. And now we're at a stage where it has happened again. And this is where, in an optic point of view, and when you look at Newcastle in a transfer market point of view, we look stupid. We don't look like a club that can complete a deal. And the evidence has continued over the past few years. Whenever Newcastle is attempting to bring a player in, if there is any competition, if there's any interest, if there's a second team there, if there's anyone else that wants to bring that player in, Newcastle always loses that race. We lose every single race we have against any team that wants to bring a player in. And the Manzambi situation, it was always a situation that, in our point of view, we were waiting for the conclusion of Switzerland at the World Cup. I made it clear in my video yesterday that if Switzerland had lost to Argentina, which it done in the early hours of the morning, the move would be open, it would be available, but we weren't aware that Aston Villa were on the table, a team of Champions League football, a team that's got a lot more pedigree than Newcastle over the past few years, and a team that, for me, season upon season upon season, are more sustainable in Newcastle. The big question marks around Aston Villa is whether or not they could have had that kind of money for Manzambi, because they're heavily restricted by finances as well. But clear evidence here is that they do have the money for Manzambi, so they're being able to get that deal done. And Newcastle have been mugged off again by players out of the World Cup. And it's been World Cup players in this trend for Newcastle, where you got a player at a competition, they wait out a deal, they decide not to accept the deal, they wait it out because of their active involvement at the tournament. And then Newcastle, as it's seen here, you got players that simply don't want to be here, or they're using Newcastle to get themselves a bigger move, and we look a bit silly. And I suppose as well, in my point of view, admittedly, I'm not part of Newcastle United's recruitment team, but I was perhaps a bit naive towards this. I almost felt like, well, Victor Munoz, it is what it is. I'm going to give Johan Manzambi the benefit of the doubt. I've given this guy the benefit of the doubt, and he's decided to go down this route. Can I blame him? No. I suppose if I was a player and I didn't have any connections in Newcastle, you probably would be using clubs like Newcastle to get yourself a better move. Why wouldn't you? And that's when you look at us in the optic point of view, because we are so easy in the transfer market to be exploited. We're so easy to be targeted. We're so easy to be played. And I know some people might defend Newcastle in the comments section, go, Adam, well, what can we do? We've got a deal, agree with Freiburg. The players decide not to join Newcastle. But in our point of view, in terms of the negotiating side of things, in terms of speaking to clubs, speaking to players and speaking to agents, I think Newcastle has to try and identify this better. I think we're far too naive. I think we're far too soft, especially trying to bring players in where the club just can't seem to pick up on red flags. They can't seem to pick up on when they don't believe a player wants to join Newcastle. I get the Manzambi's out of the World Cup, but this has been going on for weeks and weeks and weeks. Surely the club would have a deadline. Surely the club would have to have some information or something from the player where they truly believe he will join Newcastle. So what's happened is he had the interest for the player, and then it continues to drag on and on and on and on. And Newcastle just seems to still be there. They seem to be working in the transfer market as if they believe they're going to sign Johan Manzambi. So in a negotiating point of view and in a recruitment point of view, I don't understand why he wouldn't set a deadline, or he wouldn't make it absolutely certain that the player wants to join Newcastle. We just seem to be so naive in the market, and we haven't learned from Victor Munoz. Like, how has Victor Munoz not been a wake-up call for us? And it's not just the fact that we've lost out on Victor Munoz, locked out on Johan Manzambi. What does that say when we try to bring our players in this window? All of these players in the transfer market, all of our players at Newcastle United now, they will see exactly what me and you see in social media. I'm discussing it, you're reacting to it. What do you think our players will be doing? And what do you think players of our clubs will be doing? They'll see the exact same things in social media as well. So it makes us look weak in the market. We are a club that can't complete a deal, and we are a club that can't identify what players want to be here and what players don't want to be here. It's happening far too much where there's a player that you agree a deal to sign, and yet Newcastle believes they're going to get this player, and then the player just never truly wants to be at Newcastle. Like, we had to be able to identify this, and considering how bad the Victor Munoz was in an optic point of view, the club needed to get this one right. It was such a big target, it was such a big player for us, and the club had to do better. They had to turn up for this one. They had to complete the deal, and they haven't been able to do that. Of course, this has been something that's been reported for so long on social media. And considering when you look at the Bruno news, when it sounds entirely possible that we're going to sell our club captain this summer, we can't even complete deals. You can't complete any deal where there's any our club coming in for a player. Newcastle, if they're a front runner for a club, if there's only one club after a player, they're fine. They get the players that they want that way. But the second there is any form of competition, they simply can't do it. I'm not even talking about a Liverpool, Arsenal, Man City. Aston Villa are in a strong spot, to be fair to them. They've obviously got Champions League football, just won the Europa League. They're a top club and finished third last season. So they are obviously in a strong spot. But even stuff earlier in the window, we were rumoured to be trying to go after Johanna. Even that one, Brighton, a team that's in the Conference League. Look at that possibility. Newcastle couldn't complete that deal. So in terms of deals we're getting linked with, Newcastle, certainly in terms of Premier League competition, probably half the league, maybe slightly more. I actually think if there was 2 Premier League teams and Newcastle was one of them, Newcastle probably would lose to half the league in a transfer battle. That just shows where we are. That shows how we are when we're in the transfer market attempting to complete deals. We simply haven't given supporters the trust. Supporters watching this video, or you guys watching this video, or looking on social media, you won't trust the recruitment team because they aren't completing deals and they aren't getting the players that they've been so adamant on getting. These are key transfer targets. Victor Munoz was a key transfer target. Johan Manzambi was a key transfer target, and they haven't landed these deals. And there'll be excuses, there'll be media reports, some local journalists, I'm sure, the next couple of days will try and paint in a better light. But the truth is right there. That's the truth there, guys. They can't complete deals at all when there's any form of competition, and they can't identify players that don't want to be at Newcastle. They get played so much in the transfer market, and we look weak. We do look pathetic in the transfer side of things. And again, Newcastle can fix this. They've got a couple months to fix this. But I said these exact same things after Victor Munoz. That was, 3-4 weeks ago? It was our first game of the World Cup. I remember coming out of the Croatia game, I was drunk at midnight. I'm looking at the Munoz links and thinking, oh, what's going on here? Now remember that must be 4 weeks ago now, that Croatia game. We haven't learned anything. It's the same thing again. It's rinse and repeat from Newcastle. And you would like to hope after the Munoz situation there would be better identifying players, getting the right targets, getting the right style of players in. But certainly for me, I'm disappointed, to be honest. Some of you guys may still defend Newcastle and not blame Newcastle in this situation, but I think with the context of the window and with the context of last season and with the context of Newcastle last summer, this is disappointing. It is disappointing that Newcastle simply can't get a deal done. And I just think doing the same thing again after Victor Munoz, they haven't been able to get themselves in a spot where they're able to do that. Newcastle has to be perfect. They have to be strong in this window, and they haven't been. And that's why supporters won't be happy. And considering the World Cup is over next weekend, we'll come back to club football. Pre-season starting in a couple of weeks. We've got a couple of young players for the door, but there's not enough there at all to suggest that Newcastle's getting anywhere near where they want to be next season. They're saying now that on paper they want to be Champions League side, they want to finish top 5. They're never ever doing that. I actually don't think we'll finish in the top half. I actually think Newcastle next season, as things stand, assuming all these players now, and that's even assuming Bruno's sticking around and sticking in the Premier League, I actually think this squad, as things stand, is probably around where they finished last season, so around the 12th mark. That's where I think we are. I think we're just below mid-table-ish. Started going to the bottom half a little bit. That's where I think we are. We just aren't a team at all that's going to do anything. I've got no evidence at all, no confidence at all that Newcastle will push to get even Conference League and AF. I actually think won't be as easy as people make it out to be. And even then, as a competition, Newcastle probably doesn't want to be in because of the financial restrictions you'll get from playing in UEFA competitions. Europa League or above, I would say, is acceptable. Obviously, winning the cup and getting guaranteed competency football, you definitely put your hand up and accept that next season. That's what Newcastle on paper for me has to try and do. And I don't think there's any evidence at all that they're going to do that. And especially losing out on such a star player like Johan Manzambi. We haven't just lost him. He's going to Aston Villa. He will make Aston Villa a better team. And that's also a team that's in heavy financial restrictions like Newcastle. They've been able to complete a top deal. And because of how well Villa have been, because of how good they are in terms of where they are, that's how they get good players. Newcastle haven't put themselves in any favours. after their performances last season. 12's not good enough. 12's not going to get you any top players unless you are the front runner and nobody else was going to come from Manzambi. But in a realistic world, probably should have always expected some team to come in. To be fair, over the past week, a lot of you guys in the comments sections have been quite good about this. A lot of you have spotted this before it's happened. A lot of you truly believed after the Victor Munoz one, you weren't going to trust any player until it was 100% through the door and signed off. Well, it's been hijacked. Aston Villa have the player now. Fair play to them. They've absolutely played us, and Manzambi's got himself probably what's going to be a better move, you'd imagine, on paper as well for him. So we've been played. They have completely played us. So my hands go up when I say fair play. If there's any Aston Villa fans watching this video from Newcastle, they have to be better. They have to be better. We always said this after Munoz. You've got to be better. You've got to wake up and you've got to not put yourselves in this spot. And they've done the exact same thing again. So that's why it is so infuriating. And that's why Newcastle's not in a good spot at the minute. It is what it is. We're going to have to move on now. I'm sure over the next couple of days I'll have a bit more of an in-depth reaction. And kind of saying more about it and seeing what the club's response is. That's not acceptable though, considering how the club has to be this summer. I can't allow themselves to keep getting played like that. Take care anyway, guys. Let me know your opinions down below. Do you feel like I've been fair towards this? Do you feel like my wording's been fair towards the club? I personally felt like my response has been more than justified because the club's not making us look good in the market, and we will struggle to get players in if they continue to look like this, especially to any players out there, or even our current players as well. Would Bruno want to stick around when he's saying that? He's never ever going to stick around, is he? So that's where we are now, guys. Take care. Appreciate you watching, and we'll see you all in the next one.